What's up, guys? I'm here with a training video today. Today we're going to be going over one of my push sessions. This is actually my push A session. I have a push A and a push B that I rotate back and forth between. This is actually the push A session. So what you guys are looking at here is a screenshot of the programming of the session. This is actually screenshotted straight out of my Google Sheet that I use when I write training programs. So what you're seeing is a direct screenshot right out of the coaching sheet. You're going to see some things on here, such as the short, mid, stretch things that may be a little confusing here at the beginning, but I will explain those as I go throughout the session. You'll see the dumbbell hammer curl is written there in blue. The reason why that's written there in blue, and then it also says when applicable, that pretty much is based and auto-regulated based around how my week goes within the gym. So, for example, if I have a day where I'm training this push session and then it's going to be a couple days after until I'm hitting biceps, I'll do a little bit of bicep touch-up work during the push session. But normally, before I'm doing this push session, the day before, I'm doing a leg session where I'm doing some bicep work. So I don't like to train my biceps on back-to-back days. So that's why I've got the hammer curl written there in blue. But the rest of this I'm going to be explaining as I go throughout the session. Real quick, I want to touch on the fact that both of my push sessions, both push A and B right now, are very pec focused. I do have, obviously, as you can see, some tricep and delt focused work within the push session, but I'm also hitting my arm and shoulder work on my leg sessions throughout the week. So any of the volume and work that I'm not getting on my arm and delts during the push session, I am making up for throughout the course of the week throughout my pull sessions and then also throughout some of my leg sessions. But right now I'm only training my pecs once every 6 days. So the focus of the push session is going to be focused heavily on pecs. But I'm going to get into that stuff more when we get into the actual session. So hopefully you guys enjoy. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know, and I will be happy to answer. Okay, so for my first compound movement in this particular session, I'm using the flat press from Flex. This is from the leverage line. This is a pretty old piece of equipment. There aren't a lot of gyms that have this nowadays. This is, I would say, unquestionably my favorite compound chest press ever in terms of flat. There is absolutely nothing that I've ever used, maybe the Star Trek version, that really lines up my humerus with my pecs and gives me a pec contraction like this. Also, if you look, the handles converge at peak contraction, which just gives me a crazy contraction in the pecs. The only thing that I don't like about this machine is that I wish that the foot plate was a little bit bigger. As you could kind of see, I had my heels on the foot plate and my toes were kind of dangling off. It makes it hard to root with that foot plate there. So I hit on that machine 270 pounds for 10 reps. The week previous, I had hit 265 pounds for 12 reps. So what happened there is I had been hitting 12 reps on this first set, and then when I moved into the later stages, as I got more comfortable with the press, I decided I wanted to drop the reps down to 10. So I made a 5-pound jump here. Whereas vice versa on this incline press, and if you could see there, I actually matched weight and reps this week from the last time that I trained. So if you could see there, I put strike 1. Basically what that means is if I operate on a 3 strikes you're out policy. So if I go 3 weeks in a row where a lift stalls and doesn't make progress, I will swap it out. Something about that particular set of the incline press is that I adjusted the seat down a peg from where it was the week before. So that possibly could have contributed to the fact why I didn't beat my performance of the week before. But I'm gonna keep that weight again as I go through again this next time and see what the reps do, and we'll make my decision based off of that. So after my first 2 compound chest presses, I get into compound shoulder press. This is something that I kind of go back and forth with. Sometimes I like to have a shoulder press in my push sessions, but every once in a while I find if it's not a machine that really aligns my humerus upright. It kind of fucks with my bicep tendon a little bit. Um, so I typically just tend to run the overhead press until my body tells me to fuck off, and then at that point, I'll take it out and I'll just do an extra set of the flat or incline press. Wrapping up the brunt of the compound work here is the weighted dip. So something that's really interesting about the weighted dip, and something that I wanted to make note if you saw my logbook writing there, is I ended up matching the weight and reps from the week previous. So I did 41 pounds on both weeks for 9.5 reps. But on this particular session, my body weight was 1.2 pounds heavier than what it was the week before. So that's something that's really important to keep in mind when you're doing something like a dip, is if your body weight is increasing, if the weight that you're moving on that exercise isn't necessarily moving, but your body weight is increasing, you are progressively overloading because you're moving more weight. It's just the weight isn't coming from the external source; it's coming from your actual body. So now that we've wrapped up the compound work, this is where we get into the isolation work or the accessory work of the push session. So I'm here on the lying cuffed lateral, and this is cuffed laterals in general, without a doubt, are my favorite lateral raise exercise. They're basically, and I mean not basically, literally. If you look at my training log, the only lateral raise variations that I do are all cuffed and on the cable stack. I just alternate between lying variations like this, and then seated variations, incline variations, single arm variations, but they're all cuffed cables. I'm doing 3 particular sets here in this session. If you saw from the beginning of the video by my training program, the first set I like to do a shortened focus. The second set I like to do a mid-range focus, and then the third set I'll do a lengthened focus set. And basically what I'm referring to there is the different stages of the range of motion. So when a muscle is fresh, I like to spend a lot of time in the shortened position with it, the peak contraction. And that's because when the muscle is fresh, your ability to contract it is at its highest. So you want to spend time in the shortened position early on, because as the muscle gets more fatigued as you go throughout the session, it gets harder to get a full contraction of each muscle. So when I do my first set of something like the lateral raise here, if you go back and you watch the first couple reps, basically how I've done this real quick is the first couple reps of each set are played at normal speed, and then I speed up the set all the way to the end because these sets get very long. And then the clip, like the clip that you're watching right now, is the last 1 or 2 reps at normal speed. So basically what you're seeing on the first set, I'm focusing on the shortened position. So I'm spending a 3 count pause at the peak contraction. On the second set, I do what I wrote as traditional reps, which is basically just a 1 count pause at the top and then a 1 count pause at the stretch. And then the set that you're watching now, which is my third and final set, I am spending a 5 count in the bottom position. So what you're seeing right here, I'm counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 before I initiate the rep. The reason it obviously looks faster again is because I've sped this up. But basically what I'm doing is, as the muscle is fresh, I'm fully fatiguing it from the shortened position. Then from there, I go into some more traditional style rep work. And then as we get towards the end of the session, where it's getting a lot harder for me to get the muscle short, I'll spend time in the lengthened position and fully fatigue it from there. So I'm fully fatiguing the muscle in all 3 parts of the range of motion, which, in my opinion, fully stimulates hypertrophy in the muscle quite a bit more than just doing traditional reps on all of the reps. You're spending time in the various positions of the range of motion and stimulating more muscle fibers there. So you're fully taxing the muscle throughout the full range of motion. And I find that lateral delts, biceps, triceps, I mean, all the compound muscle groups like pecs and everything, they really benefit from this quite a bit. After the lateral raise, we're getting into the pec accessory here. So I'm using the pec deck. This is the Life Fitness model. This is a pretty decent machine. Ideally, I would use cables. This particular gym doesn't have really great cable systems for flies in particular. I mean, if cable systems in general, if you saw that line cuffed lateral, I had to scoot a bench up to a free motion machine and jerry rig the shit out of it to be able to get in a good position to do just a cuffed lateral. So this gym doesn't have some great cable systems, so I have to make do with some of the machines. And the pec deck that you're seeing next to me, I really do not like that at all. So this is the pec deck that I use. At this point, my pecs are pretty fried from the compound work, both the flat incline presses and the dips. So I'm using this exercise as my last opportunity to kind of fully stimulate the pecs. So my first set, again, I'm doing a focus in the shortened position. So I'm doing a 3-count pause at peak contraction, and then I have a 5-count eccentric as I'm coming back. In the second set, which is what you're going to see here, which is my last set for pecs, it's getting really hard at that point in the session for me to get the muscle fully shortened, so I fully fail the muscle in the fully lengthened position. So what I do on the second set is I utilize a 5-count eccentric, and then I have, just like the laterals, I have a 5-count pause in the fully stretched position, and then just a brief 1-count contraction at peak contraction. So these are the last reps here of the shortened set. So we'll see if I get this one short. Yeah, so I get it short. I'm counting 3, 2, 1. No, actually I didn't. That's the last rep. So that's how I wrote it, as 13 plus 1. So this is the length and bias set. So the first couple reps here, you're seeing a deep, really long pause in the fully stretch. Obviously it speeds up here. When we get to the end, you'll see the full speed of how long I spend in the stretch here. So what I'm going to be doing going forward actually is I'm going to be changing the schedule, or I guess the routine of this particular programming. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the pec fly very first in the session, where I only do one set, and I'm going to focus on the fully shortened position. Then from there, I'm going to go into the compound work. And then right after I do the compound work, then I'm going to come back and do another set of this fly, and I'll do it in the lengthened position. So basically all that I'm doing is I'm taking the 2 sets that I'm doing here, I'm splitting them up. I'm doing the one where I'm focused on spending time in the shortened position at the beginning of the session, because I'm the most fresh there. It just makes the most sense to do it. And then I'll do the lengthened one as my very last set after I get to the compound work. So the order of this going forward is going to be 1 set of the pec fly, the 4 sets of pressing, another set of pec fly here, and then I'm going to go into the lateral and rear delt work. So this is the last rep here of the lengthened set. You're going to see I'm spending a nice long 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in the lengthened position. And then, quite a bit longer than 5 seconds. So, and then I get the fully squeeze. This is a really, really long eccentric. From here, again, I'm holding that really long stretch, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. From here, I go to contract, and the muscle just fully gives out there. That's how you know the muscle is fully fucked, is when it doesn't move like that. Speaking of the rear delt work, in this particular session, my rear delt work is a rear delt focused T-bar row. On the other pull session, the rear delt work is a reverse pec deck. So what I'm doing with this Icarian T-bar here is I do not have my feet on the back plates. I think it's hard to see from this video angle unless you guys are seeing something different than I am. But I have my feet on the floor. This basically just shifts my body down a little bit so that my humerus is more in line with my rear delt. And then if you can see, if you watch my scapula or my shoulder blades, what I'm really focusing on here is zero scapular retraction. So I'm not trying to squeeze my shoulder blades together at all. I'm trying to keep my shoulder blades stationary, and I'm trying to pull out with my elbows, from my elbows. So just really trying to get that rear delt short. I'm doing 2 sets here in this particular session. The first set is going to be a shortened focus one, again, because the rear delt is fresh at this point in the session, so I can spend some time squeezing it. and then I get into the second set here of more traditional style reps. This is a little bit of a different angle, so hopefully you can see that from this angle. My shoulder blades are not pinching together. I am not doing this exercise like how I would be doing it if I was trying to train my upper back, like on a back day or a pull session. I am doing this very different. I'm keeping my scapula very still. My body is kind of tilted over the top of the pad, and I'm pulling from my elbows up until I get to the point where if I continue to pull forward, my scapula is going to retract and my shoulder blades are going to pinch together. I don't want that. I don't want to shift the load onto my upper back. I want to keep it on the rear delt. From here, we're getting to the end. This is the dual rope tricep extension. This is my second to last accessory movement for the triceps. So if you saw there on the log, this is actually strike 3. So I mentioned earlier that I operate on a 3 strikes you're out policy. This was the third week in a row that this movement has actually regressed for me, so I'm going to be swapping it out. All that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be, instead of doing 2 arms at the same time, I'm going to be doing it single arm with 1 rope. But this is actually an exercise that I've been doing. I've been doing this exercise in this pull session for over a year. And when I started on this machine, I would have to check my logbook, but I think I was doing like 25 pounds for 15 reps. And by the time I finally got to where I am here, to where it stalled, I was doing 43 and 3/4 pounds for like 11 or 12 reps. So my 15 rep max would have been, let's say, maybe 40 pounds, 41. So I took my 15 rep max on this exercise from 25 pounds to 40 pounds or 41 pounds or whatever it hypothetically would be. And that's really all that I'm trying to do within the session. Is I've been running these exercises for the longest time ever, and the only thing that I'm trying to do is just creep weight and creep reps and get a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger, and that's all that it is. So it took me 3 strikes to obviously get rid of this exercise, but that exercise had a really, really great run for me. Again, 25 pounds to 40 pounds, let's say, for the same amount of reps. I don't know what percentage that is. That'd be a 60% increase. So that's pretty good over the course of a year. So that's really all that this is about. That's all that my style of training is about, is just doing the same shit over and over and over again and just getting better at it. So last move for the triceps, I'm doing an overhead extension. I do these single arm because dual arm is just absolutely not possible for my elbows. My elbows will literally explode if I do these dual arm. Again, this is the last set of the session for my triceps, so I'm spending time in the fully stretched position. So on the bottom of each rep, which you'll see here, I'm counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 before I initiate the contraction, and then I initiate the contraction. I'm doing that on each rep. You'll see when I get to the last rep, I come back and I'm counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just like the pec deck, when I go to move, the muscle doesn't move. It's completely fucked. At that point, just get out of the gym and feed it. Normally, this would be the end of the session here. Well, normally I'd go to abs, but in this particular week, if you saw at the beginning of the session in the program, I have the hammer curl written in blue, and it has when applicable. In this particular week, I was trained on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I was trained on my biceps on Monday and then again on Friday. So they were getting like 3 days of rest in between. I think biceps and rear delts and side delts and all that stuff are muscles that you can train very frequently. So whenever something like this happens based on my work schedule, I'll toss 1 set here of bicep work into the pull session. So this is it. Dumbbell hammer curls on this particular rotation. Normally I did do 2 sets of abs after this, but I didn't record it because that shit is pretty boring. So again, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'll be happy to answer, and take care.